The wind howled, thunder cracked the sky, rain lashed down on the ancient temple. Inside, the oracle trembled, her frail body convulsed with visions of a future draped in shadows. She saw a land consumed by darkness, a world teetering on the precipice of oblivion. "A king will fall," the oracle gasped, her voice raspy, echoing through the cavernous temple. "From the ashes of his reign, a shadow will rise." The prophecy was clear. The time for heroes was nigh.
Eldoria, once a realm bathed in sunlight and laughter, now cowered under a pall of fear. The days had grown short, the nights long and oppressive. The once vibrant forests stood silent, their emerald canopies leached of color. The rivers, once sparkling arteries of the land, slugged sluggishly, their waters turning a sickly gray. The Shadow King, a being of pure malevolence, had awakened from his ancient slumber. His power, fueled by the nightmares of the world, spread like a plague, twisting and corrupting all it touched. He commanded legions of monstrous creatures, their eyes burning with a cold, unholy light. Villages lay abandoned, their inhabitants either fled or worse. The once proud cities, now fortresses under siege, trembled before the might of the Shadow King's armies. Yet, even as darkness tightened its grip, a spark of defiance flickered.
Far to the south, in the village of Oakhaven, a young man named Kalen lived in blissful ignorance of the prophecy that would shape his destiny. Strong and agile, with eyes the color of the summer sky, Kalen was loved by his people for his kindness and courage. He was, however, content with his simple life, oblivious to the destiny that awaited him. Kalen spent his days honing his skills as a hunter, providing for his family and friends. One fateful night, as the full moon hung heavy in the sky, casting an eerie glow upon Oakhaven, Kalen's world shattered. The Shadow King's forces descended upon the village, bringing with them fire and death. Kalen fought bravely, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fury as he defended his home. The battle was short, brutal, and tragically one-sided. Outnumbered and outmatched, the villagers of Oakhaven stood little chance against the Shadow King's relentless onslaught. Oakhaven, once a haven of peace, was now a scene of unimaginable carnage.
From the epicenter of the encroaching darkness, the Shadow King surveyed his handiwork. His eyes, glowing embers in a skull-like face, held a terrifying intelligence. His voice, a low, rasping growl, seemed to emanate from the abyss itself, sending chills down the spines of even his most hardened lieutenants. The Shadow King, once a powerful sorcerer known as Malkor, had been consumed by his lust for power. He delved into forbidden magic, seeking to bend the very forces of creation to his will. But his hubris proved to be his undoing. The magic he sought to control twisted him, transforming him into a grotesque mockery of his former self. Banished to the netherworld for millennia, Malkor, now the Shadow King, had clawed his way back to power. He fed on fear and despair, his strength growing with each passing day. His armies, vast and terrible to behold, marched across the land, leaving behind a trail of devastation and death.
News of Oakhaven's destruction spread like wildfire, carried on the wind to every corner of Eldoria. Fear gripped the hearts of the people. The Shadow King's power seemed insurmountable, his victory inevitable. Yet from the ashes of despair, a spark of defiance ignited. King Aric of Eldoria, a wise and noble ruler, refused to surrender to the encroaching darkness. He rallied his people, calling upon them to stand against the Shadow King. Aric dispatched his finest knights, their armor gleaming in the pale sunlight, to the far corners of the realm. Their mission, to forge an alliance with the dwarves of the Iron Mountains, the elves of the Whisperwood, and the centaurs of the Golden Plains. The fate of Eldoria hung in the balance, the survival of their world resting on the shoulders of these brave warriors. The journey was fraught with peril.
Kalen, the sole survivor of the Oakhaven massacre, wandered the ravaged countryside, his heart heavy with grief and guilt. The image of his burning village, the screams of his dying friends and family, haunted his waking hours and plagued his dreams. He blamed himself for Oakhaven's destruction. If only he had been stronger, faster, more skilled, he could have saved them. He was lost, adrift in a sea of pain and despair. One day, as Kalen stumbled through a dense forest, his clothes torn, his body weary, he came across a group of refugees fleeing the advancing darkness. They told him of King Alaric's call to arms, of the alliance being forged to combat the Shadow King. They spoke of the prophecy, of a hero destined to rise against the darkness. Kalen listened, his heart conflicted. As Kalen wrestled with his doubts, the refugees shared stories of the Shadow King's atrocities. They spoke of villages razed, of families torn apart, of innocent lives brutally extinguished. One old woman, her face etched with sorrow, took Kalen's hand. "You bear the mark of the prophecy, young one," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I saw it the night Oakhaven fell. You are the hero we have been waiting for, the champion who will vanquish the darkness." Kalen looked into the woman's eyes, saw the flicker of hope that burned within their depths. He felt a surge of shame at his own cowardice, his reluctance to embrace his destiny. "I will fight," Kalen said, his voice firm, his eyes blazing with newfound resolve. "For Oakhaven, for Eldoria, for the memory of all those we have lost."
The final battle took place on the Fields of Despair, a desolate expanse of blackened earth and broken stone that had once been a verdant plain. The armies of Eldoria, a ragtag but determined force of humans, dwarves, elves, and centaurs, stood ready to face the Shadow King's legions. The fate of the world rested on the outcome of this battle. Kalen, now clad in shining armor, stood at the forefront of the Eldorian army. In his hands he held a sword forged by the dwarves of the Iron Mountains, its blade imbued with ancient magic. He had trained tirelessly for this moment, honing his skills to razor sharpness. He was ready. The Shadow King's army surged forward, a tide of darkness crashing against the defenders of Eldoria. Kalen fought with the fury of a man possessed, his sword flashing, his movements a blur as he cut through the enemy ranks. Inspired by Kalen's courage, the Eldorian army fought with renewed vigor, pushing back against the encroaching darkness.
"You cannot defeat me. I am darkness incarnate. I am the end of all things. You are wrong. You are fear, and fear can be overcome. You are hatred, and hatred can be extinguished. You are death, but death is not the end. I am the light that banishes the shadows. I am the hope that survives the storm. I am the defender of Eldoria, and I will vanquish you."
Kalen fought his way through the heart of the Shadow King's army, his every step bought with blood and sacrifice. Finally, Kalen stood before the Shadow King. Victory came at a heavy price. The Fields of Despair were littered with the bodies of the fallen, their sacrifices a testament to their courage and their unwavering belief in a brighter tomorrow. Kalen, his armor battered, his body weary beyond measure, surveyed the scene with a heavy heart. He had vanquished the Shadow King, but not without cost. Too many good souls had perished in the fight for Eldoria's freedom. He had triumphed, but his victory tasted like ashes in his mouth. The surviving soldiers, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief, looked upon their fallen comrades with a mixture of sorrow and reverence. The cost of victory had been high, but the sacrifices made would never be forgotten. Kalen, leaning heavily on his sword, made his way through the battlefield, his steps slow and deliberate. He vowed to honor their memory, to ensure that their sacrifices had not been in vain. With the Shadow King vanquished, a new dawn broke over Eldoria. The skies, so long shrouded in darkness, now shimmered with a vibrant blue. The sun, a distant memory, once again bathed the land in its warm embrace. Life, tenacious and resilient, began to reclaim its hold. The people of Eldoria emerged from their strongholds, blinking in the unfamiliar sunlight. They looked upon their ravaged land, their hearts filled with a mixture of sorrow and hope. Kalen, hailed as a hero, stood before the assembled masses.
"The Shadow King is vanquished. The darkness has been driven back, but our work is not yet done."
And so, with heavy hearts but spirits soaring with newfound hope, the people of Eldoria set about the task of rebuilding their shattered world. The future remained unwritten, but one thing was certain: Eldoria would rise again, stronger and more united than ever before.